Hey everyone, how are you doing? Hope that you're well. So, do me a favor before we get started. I need for you to hit this like button. If you're not a subscriber, I need for you to hit the subscribe button and notification bell next to it so that you will not miss an episode. So, today we're going to talk about lead poisoning and real estate. Reason being is I came across an article that I thought was interesting. There is a actual drug for lead poisoning with a ridiculous price. But before I get into that, are you all familiar with lead poisoning and that whole scenario of what happens with that? Specifically speaking, when it happens to children. Are you all familiar with that scenario already? Any comments? Okay, I'm going to go over it real briefly. Um, Not sure if you've seen it, but I'm going to go over it real briefly. So essentially, this is how it works. So a parent will take their child in to the doctor for a blood draw, and then the doctor will determine if this child has lead in their blood or not. So there's not supposed to be lead in your blood. So as a result, what happens is that the city gets notified. The city in that the area where the houses is gets notified. They send out um, lead detection inspectors. And what they do is they comb through the house for paint. They go to every area of the house. They have a machine which will detect if there is lead in this paint or not. If they detect lead in the home, then they contact the landlord. They actually write an order for everything that needs to be repaired in the house. So if the owner doesn't do it, then the owner is taken to court. So that's the whole procedure. Just curious or not if you guys are familiar with that already. All right, so children with lead poisoning, the reason why this is very serious is because if you have lead poisoning, if you have lead in your blood, especially children, um, it can cause harm. Um, Slow growth, like developmental delays for your child. So no one wants that, right? Delayed growth. Um, you have things like irritability, fatigue, constipation, hearing loss, learning difficulties. Like no one wants their child having learning difficulties, right? Because of lead poisoning. So learning difficulties. So those are the most common things that happen. If it's not corrected, if it becomes more serious, like more high levels, it's pretty rare. But what's seen with high levels is things like seizures and brain swelling, and it could be life threatening. So that's why the issue of lead poisoning is pretty serious, um, especially if you're in real estate, you're a real estate investor, or you own real estate of any kind, right? So they will be contacting you if their children has lead poisoning, right? So this happens in older homes, like homes built like before 1972. So there was actually an act passed in 1971 called the Lead-Based Paint Poisoning Act of 1971 that banned lead-based paint. However, since there are so many homes on the market that are still older, there are still homes that have um, lead-based paint in it. And essentially, if the city is sent out to your house, what they're looking for is they're looking for chip paint. So if that ever happens to you, you have to repaint the house essentially, every area that is chip paint. So repainting the house. So it comes from the child actually eating the chips of paint, But it can also just come from the dust, from being in an older house. So inhaling the dust, that's where children commonly get it. It could also happen to adults, right? So it's in the paint essentially. It's in the dust of the older homes. But then it's also in other things like water, soil. So if you're drinking from old pipes, that's when you get into the adult category. So with adults, what you'll see with lead poisoning, you don't hear about this ever, do you? So you hear about it in children. So with adults, lead poisoning could cause high blood pressure, joint pain, decrease in memory, low sperm count, miscarriage. So all of this is detected by checking your blood. So they take a blood draw and they see if your blood is normal or if it has lead in it. So I came across this article. I thought this article was interesting because there's a maker of a drug that has a lead poisoning antidote. He is pledging to help uninsured patients. And guess how much this drug costs? You'll never guess. $32,000. $32,000 for a lead poisoning antidote. So this drug, it comes from France. They get it over in France. Over in France, it is $3,500. $3,500. But after they transport it over here to the US, they raised it from the $3,500 cost to $32,000. So the drug costs $32,000 for one course of treatment. Do you think anybody is going to pay for that? So the cost is 10 times higher as being imported from France. The name of the drug is calcium disodium EDTA. So, like I said before, over in France, it costs $3,500. There's a pharmaceutical company over in France by the name of BTG Pharmaceuticals. So, over here, we had a shortage in 2021. The pharmaceutical company name is Valiant Pharmaceuticals, and then they changed their name to Bausch Health, BAUSCH Health. So, for people in the stock market, you know, there's a section over in the stock market that has pharmaceuticals, right? So I checked out this specific pharmaceutical, and looking at the stock, it's not doing well. It's not doing well. Bausch Health is what I looked at. BAUSCH Health. So that's what people commonly do. Like they look at what is going on in the world and then they think about what they would like to invest in. Right. So the maker of this drug that costs $32,000, he is pledging to help uninsured patients. There is a patient assistance program, according to this article, that will cover some of the costs. However, it's covering out of pocket costs, and the end result will be that you will still have to pay the majority of the costs. So essentially, the patient assistance program, the way it is right now, is really not that much assistance. So they're stating that people don't use the patient assistance program because they don't know about it or they don't want to disclose sensitive information. But in reality, it doesn't really cover that much anyway. It's going to cover out of pocket costs, and then they leave you with the majority of the bill, right? So it's just interesting to see what is going on. A drug that's supposed to cost $3,500, not $3,500, that's already too high, right? So a drug that's supposed to cost $3,500, they increased the price to $32,000. So it's interesting that they have a drug for lead poisoning. The name of it is calcium disodium EDTA, And it's interesting that it costs $32,000. And there are pharmaceutical companies in the stock market as a part of the stock market. All right. So that's what people do that invest. They just keep their eyes and the ears open to what is going on around them. And then I thought this was interesting. All right. Because this is a real phenomenon, especially in the real estate world. Lead poisoning, something to watch out. Um, Good to stay away from the older homes if you can. If not, just make sure that your property is safe and that you're not jeopardizing the health of your tenants. Right? All right, so do me a favor before we leave. I need for you to hit this like button. And if you are not a subscriber, I need for you to hit the subscribe button and notification bell next to it so that you will not miss an episode. Also, feel free to share this with anyone that you know who is interested in building wealth or increasing their finances, improving their finances. So hit like, hit subscribe, and share the channel. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Are you familiar with this lead poisoning scenario already? So it's been going on for a long, long, long time. All right. All right. So thank you for watching. Don't forget, hit that like button on your way out. Have a good rest of your nights.